He stood frozen, champagne glass trembling in his hand, as two small voices called him Daddy. Benjamin Caldwell, billionaire, philanthropist, a man supposedly incapable of fathering children, locked eyes with the woman he once loved, and the twins beside her who bore his eyes. Emma Harris vanished from Ben's world 5 years ago. No explanations, no answers, just heartbreak, sealed with silence. Now she's back, with children he was told he could never have. When the man you love disappears after confessing he can't give you a family, and then fate delivers one anyway, what do you do? Would you forgive someone who broke your heart to protect your dreams? Or would you keep the truth hidden, even if it meant denying your children their real father? Hello, my beautiful family. I bring you this story from the burning portion of my heart. I see your comments and I love every one of you. May the good God continue to bless you all. Amen. Just in case you're new here, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, because here at Love and Twilights, we bring you the best love stories in the world. Now, let's begin. The afternoon sun glinted off the glass doors of Mercy Hospital's new pediatric wing as Benjamin Caldwell stepped inside, buttoning his charcoal suit with a quiet precision. His movements were composed, but his heart raced beneath the surface. To everyone else, he was the picture of success, the celebrated CEO funding another life-saving initiative. But inside, he was hollow. Just that morning, he had received results that confirmed what he'd feared for years: irreversible infertility. There would be no sons with his crooked smile, no daughters with his mother's laugh. His dreams of fatherhood were reduced to white paper and clinical stamps. And yet, here he was, expected to smile, speak, and shake hands. The ribbon-cutting ceremony blurred in his memory. The applause, the speeches, they felt like noise behind a sheet of glass. He accepted a glass of water, walked into the reception hall, and tried to quiet the storm inside him. That's when he saw her. Across the room, beneath the warm lighting and floral decor, stood Emma Harris. She hadn't changed. Her presence still carried calm, like a breath of air after a long drought. Her honey-brown hair framed her face just as he remembered, but it wasn't her beauty that made Ben's heart stutter. It was the children beside her. 2 of them. A boy and a girl, no older than 4, clung gently to the folds of her dress. The girl had Emma's dimples. The boy, his eyes were unmistakably Ben's. Ben felt time stretch, his chest tightening. Emma's expression shifted from soft joy to stunned recognition. She took a step toward him, clutching the hand of the boy, who blinked up at the stranger with wide-eyed curiosity. Ben. Her voice cracked the air like a dropped glass. I didn't expect. I came to support the wing. Ben interrupted, tone clipped. It's a personal cause. Emma followed his gaze to the children. Her fingers instinctively tightened around theirs. Come say hello, she whispered to them, hesitating. The boy was the first to speak. Mommy, is that the man from your work picture? Emma nodded faintly. The girl stepped forward, her small hand reaching out to touch Ben's tailored pants. Daddy? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. Ben's world stopped. His lungs refused air. His vision clouded. Please excuse me, he said hoarsely, brushing past Emma as her lips parted in protest. She called his name again, soft, desperate, but Ben was already moving through the crowd, away from the glimmering chandeliers and polite conversations. Around the corner, he leaned against a wall, hands gripping the polished wood railing. His knees buckled. The sterile hallway spun around him. He dropped to the floor with a thud only he could hear. In his ears rang one word over and over, Daddy. Impossible. Unthinkable. His own diagnosis screamed back at him like a cruel joke. But those eyes, his eyes, looked up at him from a little boy's face. His name, spoken by the mouth of a daughter he never knew existed. He clutched his chest. The pain was sharp, electric. Emma. He mouthed, but no sound came. And then, darkness. Ben opened his eyes to a white ceiling, sterile lights and the faint beeping of machines. A nurse stood at his side, clipboard in hand. Mr. Caldwell, you fainted. You're in recovery now. He tried to speak, but only a dry rasp came out. The nurse handed him water. Your heart's under stress. You need to rest. He nodded weakly, already turning his thoughts to what had happened, what he saw. A knock sounded at the door. Dr. Patel entered, an older man with knowing eyes. You collapsed after the event, Patel said gently. We ran some tests. You're stable, but you need to manage your condition. Ben stared at him. Emma, was she here? Patel hesitated. She was, yes. She brought you in, waited until we said you were stable, then left. Ben closed his eyes. The twins. I reviewed her records, Patel said cautiously. She gave birth 4 years ago. A boy and a girl. He paused. Under the name Emma Caldwell. Ben's breath caught. She gave them my name, he whispered. Patel nodded. She never changed it back after whatever happened. Ben's voice cracked. But I was told I couldn't. I know, Patel said softly. But life doesn't always follow the rules of a diagnosis. Silence settled. The monitor beeped. Ben stared at the ceiling, the ache in his chest growing more unbearable by the second. I need to see her, he said finally. I need to know everything. Patel placed a hand on his shoulder. Take your time. But yes, you do. As the doctor left, Ben reached for his phone with trembling hands. No answer. He tried again. Voicemail. Again. With a slow, pained groan, he sat up in bed. Emma, he whispered, you have my world, and I didn't even know it. Before the heartbreak, before the lie that separated them, there was magic. It was a cool spring morning in 2018 when Benjamin Caldwell first saw her again, not at a gala or a hospital board meeting, but on the sunlit grounds of a community fundraiser. He'd come to deliver a speech and hand out donation checks. Emma had come for the children. Under the crisp canopy of white tents, she knelt by a group of young patients, tying ribbons around small gift boxes. Her hair was pulled back in a loose bun, and a faded volunteer badge hung crooked from her white coat. One boy handed her a cookie and giggled. Emma beamed. Ben stood a few steps away, caught in the kind of gaze that says more than words ever could. Dr. Harris, he greeted softly as he approached. Emma looked up, startled. Her cheeks flushed, but her smile didn't fade. Mr. Caldwell, she replied, rising to her feet. You clean up nicely. He chuckled. You remember me. I never forgot you, she said gently. How could I? You once brought an entire NICU teddy bears, just because you overheard they ran out. They walked side by side across the event lawn, handing out snacks and answering kids' questions. Where he once had walls, Emma brought ease. Where she once had fear, Ben gave stillness. After the event, he invited her for coffee at a local corner cafe. No security, no press, just two people trying not to fall too fast. The barista recognized him and offered a free slice of pie. Emma insisted they split it. I used to come here when I was a resident, she said, slicing the crust with a plastic fork. On nights I couldn't sleep after a tough case. Ben nodded. I used to come here before boardroom battles. Something about the quiet here helps me remember I'm still human. She tilted her head. You forget that often? He hesitated. More than I'd like to admit. Emma reached across the table. Then I'll remind you. It was the first time in years Ben felt like he could exhale. Not as a CEO, not as a brand, just as a man. That evening they walked along the river, the water mirroring the last of the golden light. Emma paused on the old footbridge. You know, I used to believe love had to hurt, she confessed. That if it didn't break you a little, it wasn't real. Ben stopped beside her, eyes soft. And now? Now, she said, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek, I think real love heals more than it breaks. He reached for her hand. Let's find out together. They did. For a time. Through spring and summer, their relationship blossomed in small, perfect moments. Morning coffees turned into weekend picnics. Emma's apartment fridge slowly filled with his favorite snacks. Ben's usually barren desk gained a photo, Emma laughing beside a cotton candy stand at the zoo. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't dramatic. It was simply real. Ben, for the first time, shared more than just business figures or charity plans. He spoke of fears, of family pressure, of the heavy silence that haunted him at night. Emma, too, opened old wounds. She'd grown up in foster care. Love, to her, had always been conditional, until Ben. I never knew what safety felt like until you, she whispered once as they lay watching the stars from his rooftop. He kissed her forehead. And I never knew what it meant to be seen. When autumn came, he took her to a park filled with gold leaf trees. Under their favorite oak, he got down on one knee. No crowd, no fanfare, just the sound of the wind, and one simple question. Emma, will you build forever with me? She wept and nodded. Yes, yes, God, yes. That night, they danced barefoot in his living room, the ring on her finger catching candlelight. It felt like the beginning of something eternal, but forever came with shadows. Ben's parents were old-fashioned, too old-fashioned. At every family gathering they mentioned future grandchildren. Emma would smile politely, hiding the sting. She wanted children. She always had. But Ben couldn't give her that. He hadn't told her yet. He was waiting, foolishly hoping the diagnosis would somehow change. That love alone could undo biology. It didn't. One cold night, after an awkward dinner filled with unsubtle hints and awkward glances, Emma finally turned to him in the parking lot. "Ben," she said, voice tight, "I need you to be honest with me. Do you want children?" His heart cracked open. The words clung to his throat, but he forced them out. "I can't." Emma froze. "What do you mean?" "I've known for a while. Doctors confirmed it. I'm not capable." Her breath hitched. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't want to lose you." Her eyes filled. "But you did lose me. Just slowly." She touched his face gently. "I love you, Ben. But love needs truth. We can't keep building on silence." 3 months later, in the quiet meadow where he once proposed, she handed him the ring. "I'll never stop loving you," she said. "But I can't promise away my dreams." Ben swallowed hard. "And I won't hold you back." She stepped away, tears catching the wind. "One day you'll understand." As she vanished into the trees, Ben fell to his knees. The grass was cold. The ring was warm in his palm. He pressed it to his lips, whispering a goodbye he never imagined would be permanent. The apartment felt colder without him. Emma curled into the corner of the couch, the silence pressing in like a weight. Ben's mug still sat on the counter. His scarf still hung by the door. But the man she loved was gone, and not because he didn't care. He'd left because he believed he had nothing more to give. That made it harder, not easier. She tried calling. Once, twice, then again deep into the night. Each time, the line rang out into nothing. By dawn, her pillow was soaked in tears, and her heart refused to accept the finality of it all. Her days blurred into colorless routines. Work, home, cry, repeat. It was during one of her rounds at the hospital that dizziness hit her like a crashing wave. She gripped a nearby cart to steady herself. A nurse rushed over, and Emma forced a smile, pretending she hadn't just blacked out for 2 seconds. "You okay, Dr. Harris?" someone asked. "I'm fine," she replied automatically, though her pulse told a different story. Later that night, back in the dim light of her bathroom, she sat on the edge of the tub and stared down at the test in her hand. Her fingers trembled as she turned it over. 2 lines. The kind of clarity she hadn't expected, but couldn't deny. She was pregnant, and the certainty of it was like thunder in her veins. Her mind reeled. She remembered Ben's words. "I'm not capable." She remembered the tears in his eyes when he said it, the quiet shame in his voice. And yet, here they were, 2 lives, growing inside her. She pressed her hands to her belly, heart pounding. "How?" she whispered aloud. The universe gave no answer, but something told her this was no mistake. That night, Emma didn't cry. She just sat there, letting the new reality settle into her bones. She could still feel Ben in her heartbeat. But this was hers now. Hers to protect. Hers to carry forward. The only person she told was Sophie. It was a rainy evening when Emma broke the news. They sat on Sophie's couch, wine untouched, as thunder rolled in the distance. "I'm pregnant," Emma said quietly, her voice almost drowned by the storm outside. Sophie's eyes widened. "Wait, Ben?" Emma nodded. Sophie dropped the remote. "Emma, what are you going to do?" "I don't know," she whispered. He thought it wasn't possible. He believed it so deeply he ended everything. Sophie touched her hand. "So tell him. This could change everything." Emma shook her head. "Or it could destroy what little peace he has left. What if he thinks I'm lying? What if it breaks him more?" Sophie was silent for a long time. "You still love him?" Emma's voice broke. Every second. She didn't call Ben. Instead, she moved through the pregnancy with quiet grace. She transformed her guest room into a nursery, painting soft colors and choosing 2 plush stuffed animals to sit in the crib. She never bought a third. There were always just 2. Twins, a boy and a girl. She named them early, Andrew and Bianca. names that meant courage and light. She documented everything: kicks, cravings, doctor's visits, like a mother writing to a man she wasn't sure she'd ever see again. Her phone held unsent photos. Her journal carried unsent letters. When the contractions came, Emma labored alone. Her fingers clutched the edge of the hospital bed, eyes shut tight as pain gripped her in waves. She refused any calls. She refused sympathy. She just wanted to meet her children. And when they arrived, first Andrew, then Bianca, something inside her cracked wide open. She wept with joy, with grief, with gratitude. Raising twins on her own wasn't easy. But Emma found strengths she didn't know she had. Bianca had her curiosity, always reaching, always questioning. Andrew had Ben's eyes, and sometimes, when he looked at her just right, it took her breath away. Every milestone was bittersweet. First steps, first words, their first birthday. She made 2 cakes, took 100 pictures, lit candles and whispered a wish she didn't dare say aloud, that their father might one day know them. Emma met Dr. Alexander Pierce a year later. He was kind, gentle, a pediatric surgeon with hands that healed and eyes that listened. He never asked questions she wasn't ready to answer. He showed up with groceries when she was too tired. He read bedtime stories when she couldn't keep her eyes open. The twins adored him. Eventually, love bloomed, not like wildfire, but like a steady sunrise. Quiet, consistent, comforting. They married in a modest ceremony. No grand declarations, just 2 people choosing peace. And still, Ben lived in a quiet part of her heart, not with regret, not with longing, just with a softness that never really went away. Ben, meanwhile, tried to rebuild his life. He kept busy, took meetings, smiled for photos, dated briefly, got engaged even. But when the woman he was set to marry told him she didn't want adopted children in her future, something inside him broke. That night, he opened a blank journal and began writing letters. To Andrew, to Bianca. He wrote as if they might read them one day. Letters filled with love, with questions, with stories about the man he wished he could be. He tucked them into envelopes, never mailed a single one. They were his therapy, his prayer, his proof that somewhere out there, part of him still existed. 4 years passed, and fate, as it often does, brought them full circle. Mercy Hospital, the pediatric wing. Emma arrived with Alexander and the twins for a special recognition event. Andrew wore a tie. Bianca clutched her drawing of a rainbow. Ben was already there, seated quietly behind the crowd. He didn't recognize them at first, but when he heard a little girl laugh, the exact pitch of a memory he'd buried, his heart lurched. Then the boy turned. Those eyes. Ben stood, frozen, and everything he thought he had buried came rushing back with the force of 1,000 waves. Ben stood motionless. The polished marble beneath his shoes may as well have vanished. Across the room, just beyond the hospital's decorative fountain, stood Emma, and the 2 children he could no longer ignore. Andrew tugged at Bianca's sleeve, whispering something about juice boxes. Bianca giggled and waved a crayon in the air. Emma bent to adjust Bianca's collar, then stood upright. Their eyes met. It was only a second, but that second fractured something inside him. Ben turned sharply, nearly stumbling into a catering cart. His vision dimmed. The lights above swirled. His heart beat loud and erratic in his ears. He stumbled down the corridor, bumping shoulders without apology. Behind him, Emma called his name, breathless. He didn't stop. Down the West Wing hallway, he found an empty corridor near the surgical suites. He leaned against the wall, palm pressed to his chest. A sudden jolt of pain radiated through his left arm. His knees buckled. Everything faded. When Ben woke, the lights above were less harsh. The beeping machines beside him were familiar. He was back in a hospital bed, ironically, one funded by his own donation. A voice spoke gently. "You had a mild cardiac episode." Ben turned his head slowly. Dr. Patel stood beside him, clipboard lowered. "You're lucky. It could have been worse." Ben didn't speak. Patel continued. "You've had stress symptoms for a while. This was your body calling a timeout." Ben swallowed. "The children, were they here?" Patel nodded. "Emma stayed until she knew you were stable." Ben closed his eyes. "I saw the boy. Andrew. His eyes, they're mine." Dr. Patel hesitated. You know, I reviewed her file. She listed you as next of kin at the time of the birth. But you were never contacted. Ben's brow furrowed. Why? She marked it confidential, said it was complicated. But she never removed your name. Ben's voice cracked. She gave them my name? Yes, Patel said. Emma Caldwell. Birth certificates list Andrew and Bianca Caldwell. Ben turned to the ceiling, hot tears brimming. He couldn't breathe for a moment. Couldn't think. I was told I couldn't be a father, he whispered. I've lived with that certainty for years. Doctor, Patel softened his tone. I don't know what changed, but clearly something did. A long pause. Ben's voice was quieter than before. All this time, I thought she left me because she didn't love me anymore. Sometimes, the doctor said, people leave to protect the very thing they love most. Ben sat up slowly, groaning at the strain. Patel placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. You need to rest. I need to find her, Ben replied, determination sharpening his tone. Discharge came quicker than expected. Ben ignored the pleas to rest, shrugging into his coat and stepping out into the early evening light. The city hummed with life, cars honking, people rushing by, but none of it touched him. He walked, past the cafe they used to love, past the old bookstore where Emma once read him a line from her favorite poem, past the Riverwalk where he first asked her to stay in his life. He ended up at her old apartment building. The name on the buzzer was different now. He turned away. That night, Ben sat in his penthouse, lights off, city spread out like a sea of fire beneath him. He reached for his journal. He wrote, Andrew, Bianca, I don't know if you'll ever read this, but I saw you today, and I broke in a way I didn't know was still possible. You are more than a miracle. You are proof that life still has meaning. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry I disappeared, but I will find my way to you. I promise. He closed the journal. For once, he didn't feel like he was writing to ghosts. Meanwhile, Emma sat beside the twins' bed. They had fallen asleep, clutching their favorite toys. Bianca's blanket trailed to the floor. Andrew had one sock halfway off. Emma held her phone, staring at the screen. Ben had called. 3 times. She didn't answer. She hadn't slept in 2 days. Alexander sat down beside her. You okay? Emma nodded slowly. He saw them. Alexander's brows furrowed. At the event, she explained, he collapsed, ended up in the ER. Alexander exhaled. Did you talk to him? No. He tried to, but I wasn't ready. Alexander placed a hand on hers. You still care? She didn't answer. I'll step aside if you need space, he said gently. Emma turned to him, eyes moist. You don't have to. But I can't pretend this didn't happen. Alexander nodded, then kissed her temple. Whatever you choose. I support you. The next morning, Ben showed up at the hospital again, not with security or assistance, just himself. He waited quietly in the garden area where Emma once took kids for story time. After an hour, he heard a soft voice behind him. You shouldn't be up. Ben turned. Emma stood there, arms crossed. I had to see you, he said. I'm surprised you didn't bring lawyers. I don't want to fight, he replied. I just want the truth. Emma hesitated. I would have come back if I'd known, he said. I would have done everything differently. Emma lowered her gaze. I didn't want to break you more than you already were. Ben stepped closer. You were never a burden, Emma. You were my lifeline, and they, Andrew and Bianca, they're the air I never knew I needed. She blinked rapidly. You still want to be part of their lives? I never stopped. The following Saturday morning was quiet. Emma stood in the kitchen, her fingers wrapped around a mug of herbal tea she hadn't sipped from. The twins were still asleep upstairs, sunlight slipping in through their curtains like a gentle whisper. Her phone buzzed. Ben, if they're awake, I'd like to see them today. Only if you're ready. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked to the twins' room and watched them sleep. Andrew had kicked off his blanket again. Bianca was curled around her favorite giraffe plushie. Emma breathed in slowly. She texted back, Emma, come at 10. We'll be in the backyard. Ben arrived precisely on time. He wore jeans and a button-down, no suit, no tie, just a man trying to be something more than a visitor. In one hand, he carried a small paper bag. In the other, a cautious hope. Emma led him through the house and out onto the wooden deck. The yard was quiet, except for the sound of wind brushing through the trees. Andrew and Bianca sat under the big maple tree, coloring in a notebook. When they saw Emma, they smiled. But when they saw the man behind her, their faces shifted. Curiosity, recognition, a flicker of something deeper. Ben knelt slowly. "Hi," he said softly. Bianca tilted her head. "You're the man from Mommy's stories." Andrew's brow furrowed. "Mommy said you used to love us." Ben's voice trembled. "I still do. Every day. I just didn't know how to find you." He reached into the paper bag and pulled out 2 small plush toys, identical to the ones Emma had once placed in their crib. The twins gasped. "These were yours," Emma whispered, stunned. Ben nodded. "I've kept them all this time." Bianca reached out first, clutching the toy to her chest. Andrew followed, slowly leaning forward until he rested his head on Ben's knee. Ben swallowed a sob and placed a hand gently on Andrew's back. "I missed so much," he whispered. That afternoon passed in a quiet kind of magic. They built a block tower together. They shared peanut butter sandwiches and juice boxes. Ben told them stories, not about boardrooms or hospitals, but about the day he saw their mother smile for the first time. Emma watched from the kitchen window, arms folded over her chest, blinking fast. Later, Ben sat beside her on the deck steps as the twins napped in the shade. "They're perfect," he said. "They're strong," she replied. "Because they had to be." "I wasn't there," he admitted, "but I want to be now. If you'll let me." Emma hesitated. "It's not just about showing up, Ben. It's about staying." "I know," he said. "That's why I sold the New York condo." Her head turned sharply. "You? What?" "I don't need skyscrapers. I need mornings like this. Afternoons in backyards. I want to be near them." Emma stared at him, searching for any trace of the man who once hid behind business suits and sterile conference rooms. He met her gaze with something raw. "I don't expect forgiveness overnight, but I'm not here for a visit. I'm here to rebuild." Over the next weeks, Ben returned often. He read books with the twins, took them to the park, sat through toddler tantrums and cereal spills. He showed up in the rain, in the cold, even when he was tired. He started calling them every night before bed, telling them made-up stories and reminding them that their dreams mattered. And slowly, the walls Emma had built, brick by painful brick, began to shift. One afternoon, Bianca got a fever. Emma panicked. Ben arrived in minutes with a thermometer, fresh towels, and the exact popsicle flavor Bianca liked. "You remembered," Emma said softly. "I listen now," Ben replied. They sat in silence as Bianca dozed off between them. "She asked if you'd still be here when she's 5, Emma said suddenly. "I'll be here when she's 50, Ben replied. One evening, as the twins painted on the patio, Emma pulled Ben aside. "I need to ask you something," she said. "Not as their father. As the man I once loved." Ben straightened. "Why didn't you fight harder when I left?" His expression faltered. "I was broken," he admitted, ashamed. "I thought letting you go was the noble thing." Emma's voice cracked. "It wasn't noble. It was abandonment." He nodded. "And I regret it every day." A long pause. "You were always braver than me," he said quietly. "But I'm learning now. Courage doesn't mean having no fear. It means showing up in spite of it." The next morning, Emma found a letter in her mailbox. It was addressed to her. Inside were pages from Ben's journal, letters to Andrew, to Bianca, notes from nights he spent alone, wishing for the very moments he now had. At the bottom of the final page, in bold, uneven handwriting, were 6 words, "Thank you for not erasing me." Emma pressed the letter to her chest and cried. The morning sun filtered through the nursery window, casting soft rays across the floor where Andrew and Bianca played with their puzzles. Emma stood in the doorway, watching Ben crouched beside them, his laughter echoing in the room. He wasn't the man who once built empires with silence and strategy. He was something softer now, still powerful, but in a way that mattered more. He glanced up and smiled at her. Emma's heart gave a quiet ache. She had wanted this. A man who would show up not with perfection, but presence. Still, something gnawed at the edges. The pallor in Ben's face when he thought she wasn't looking. The moments he pressed 2 fingers to his chest when he stood too quickly. The brief flicker of pain he brushed off with a smile. That night, when the twins had gone to bed, Emma sat beside him on the couch. "Ben," she said carefully, "how's your heart?" He looked at her, a beat too long. Stable, she arched a brow. That's not an answer. He exhaled. The episode at the hospital. It wasn't my first. Emma's chest tightened. You didn't tell me? I didn't want to scare you off again. She leaned in. You don't get to protect me from my own decisions. We're not building this on secrets anymore. Ben took her hand. I'm not dying. But the truth is, I've been ignoring it for too long. I kept thinking success would outrun it. Emma's eyes welled. And now? Now, he whispered. I want to live long enough to walk Bianca down the aisle, to teach Andrew how to drive. I want all of it. Then let's fight for it. Together. Ben checked into the cardiology unit the next morning. It wasn't urgent, yet, but it was necessary. He was scheduled for a procedure that would stabilize his heart rhythm, followed by weeks of strict recovery. Emma stayed at the hospital every day, juggling work, twins, and worry. The kids made drawings. For Daddy's heart, Bianca said, pasting a glittery heart to the get-well card. Alexander dropped off soup and offered to help with pickups from school. He didn't ask questions. He just showed up with quiet support, the way old friends do when love changes but care remains. Emma watched Ben sleep, tubes connected to machines that beeped rhythmically. She traced his hand with her fingers. Don't you dare leave them again, she whispered. Don't you dare leave me again. Ben recovered slowly but surely. Each week brought progress, fewer medications, more energy. The doctors were hopeful, though firm. This was a second chance, not an endless one. When he returned home, the twins decorated the entire living room with construction paper banners and stick figure portraits. Andrew climbed into his lap. Mommy said you got a new heart, he whispered. Ben smiled. Not new, just stronger. One evening, as summer began to warm the air, Emma and Ben sat on the back steps watching the twins chase fireflies. You scared me, she said softly. I scared myself, he replied. Emma rested her head on his shoulder. You made a promise to stay, and I meant every word, he said. This time, I'm keeping it. A silence settled between them. You still love me? He asked. She looked up. I never stopped. He cupped her face gently. Then let's not waste any more time. Ben didn't propose the way he once did, on one knee, with practiced lines and curated backdrops. This time, he stood beside her on a rainy Tuesday morning, the twins dancing in puddles outside, and said, Let's build the life we talked about. No delay, no fear. Emma blinked. You mean, let's marry, small, simple, but real. This time we finish what we started. She nodded, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. Yes, 1,000 times yes. They married in the garden behind their home. Andrew walked Emma down the aisle. Bianca held the rings in a velvet box. Their vows weren't perfect, but they were true. Promises made not in the flush of romance, but in the calm certainty of love that had endured. As Ben kissed her, the twins clapped wildly. And for the first time in years, Emma felt peace. The house was never quiet anymore. Not in the mornings, when Bianca sang her way through cereal and Andrew insisted on wearing mismatched socks to school. Not in the afternoons, when Emma returned from the hospital to find finger paint on the kitchen table and Lego castles built under the dining chairs. And certainly not at night, when bedtime turned into just one more story and long talks with Ben on the porch once the kids finally drifted off. But Emma wouldn't trade the noise for anything. It was the sound of life, the life they'd almost lost, the life they now chose, together. Ben never went back to his penthouse. Instead, he donated the property to a children's foundation and moved into the house permanently. He set up an office in the guest room but rarely used it for more than creative writing, letters to the twins, and once a surprise bedtime story he printed and read aloud beneath a blanket fort. He no longer chased headlines or approval from boardrooms. He chased laughter, truth, time with them. One evening, as the family sat around the dinner table, spaghetti night, messy and full of giggles, Emma paused to watch them all. Ben twirled noodles for Bianca, making airplane sounds. Andrew tried to use a spoon instead of a fork, just to be different. Emma leaned back, heart full. Later that night she asked, Do you miss the life you left? Ben kissed her knuckles. No, I finally have something worth keeping. They took the twins to the coast for spring break. It was their first real vacation together. Bianca collected seashells. Andrew made it his mission to chase every crab. Emma packed sandwiches and took pictures on an old film camera, wanting to remember this exactly as it was. One night, they sat on the sand as the sun dipped below the waterline. Emma leaned into Ben, blanket wrapped around them both. "I was terrified," she whispered, "raising them without you." "I was terrified too," Ben replied, "not because I couldn't raise children, but because I didn't believe I deserved to." She touched his face. "You always did. And you," he smiled, "you raised them into beautiful little humans." "We raised them," she corrected. "Now, we raise each other." Months passed. Seasons changed. The twins started kindergarten. Ben cried, quietly, behind his sunglasses, as they walked through the gates hand in hand with new backpacks and proud smiles. Emma squeezed his hand. "They'll be fine," she said. "I know," he replied. "It's me I'm worried about." He spent the whole day waiting to pick them up. When they ran into his arms after the final bell, his world righted again. On their anniversary, Ben gave Emma a box. Inside was a collection of letters, some from years ago, never sent, others written recently. Every one ended the same way: "Thank you for not giving up." Emma cried into his chest as the twins sang them a song they had made up, completely off-key and completely perfect. That night, Ben made a toast under the stars, to the life we didn't plan, and the one we chose instead. Not every day was easy. There were sick days and spilled juice and forgotten appointments. There were hard conversations and small missteps. But there was love, steady and real, stitched into each corner of their home. Ben's health required discipline, but he stayed on top of it. Emma's hours were long sometimes, but Ben packed the twins' lunches and left love notes in their snack boxes. They were a team. One morning, Bianca asked, "Daddy, what's the most important thing you ever did?" Ben looked at her and smiled. "Choosing to come back," he said, "and staying." Years later, on a golden autumn afternoon, the family returned to the same meadow where Ben once proposed. This time, they laid out a picnic. Bianca braided flowers into Emma's hair. Andrew skipped stones across the nearby creek. Ben and Emma lay back in the grass, watching clouds drift. "Funny how everything once felt like it was ending here," he murmured. "And now," Emma said, resting her head on his chest, "it feels like everything just began." He smiled, hand resting over his heart. Beating strong, beating present, beating with purpose. Love isn't just about how you begin. It's about what you choose over and over again. Would you give your heart a second chance, even after it was broken once? Drop a comment below. Like, share, and subscribe to Love and Twilights. Because real stories, deep stories, never truly end. They evolve, just like love.